my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today I'm going to show you guys how to make a couple different variations on horns. Horns are a really fun way to add extra personality and more detail to your characters, and I'm going to show you guys how to make a couple different versions of them. That way you don't have to do the same type of horns over and over again, and it just adds a little bit extra fun to the piece. Anyways, let's get started. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you how to make 5 different types of horns that you can use to make creatures with. Now all of these I'm going to be using to make dragons with, but you can make honestly anything you want. You can make unicorns, wolves, anything that you want to throw a pair of horns on, or even just a single horn you can use these for. So we're going to start with a simple wire frame. I'm going to use the same wire frame for all of the horns. That way we're focusing mainly on the sculpting aspect and not the making of the wire frame. So all the wire frames are basically just a long piece of wire bent in half evenly. That way we can make the horns even. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite ways to make horns, which is really simple. Basically, I'm going to show you how to make a really simple spiral horn. So I'm going to start with 2 balls of clay, and I'm going to make sure they're as even as possible. That way our horns will be as even as possible. So I'm going to take these balls of clay and I'm going to roll them out using my palm, and I'm going to try and make a cone shape. And you'll want to make the cones even as well. Once you get a cone shape that you're happy with, you're going to take those cones and you're going to push them onto the wire frame. I'm then going to use my fingers to kind of pull the clay down the wire frame and smooth everything out so it's a little longer than it is now. Once I'm happy with how this looks, I'm going to use my left hand to hold the wire frame and to pinch the very bottom of one of the horns. I'm doing this to keep the bottom of the horn from moving. Next, I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to grab onto the clay right above where I'm pinching the horn, and then I'm going to start twisting the clay. You're basically twisting the clay around the wire that's in the middle of it. And as I'm twisting, I'm slowly going up the horn. This should create a nice little spiraling effect going all the way up. And once you get to the end, you're just going to kind of pinch it a little bit so the horn is a little bit pointed at the end. And then for the other one, that way it's kind of a mirrored effect. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to twist it going the other direction. And that's basically it for the first pair of horns. Like I said, very simple. If you just want to throw a pair of horns on something, this is the best way to do it. For my second pair of horns, I'm going for something a little bit simpler, softer, and could be used for maybe making baby animals or maybe even fairy type creatures. So for this design, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to make a bunch of little balls of clay, and as I'm making them smaller and smaller. So I'm going to start with larger balls of clay and I'm going to push them onto the wire, and then I'm going to take a smaller ball of clay and I'm going to push that on and stack it on top of the other ball. And I'm going to keep going smaller and smaller as I'm adding balls to the wire. And then if you want, you can add some extra textures to this, but for this piece I'm going to leave it simple because I wanted to leave it nice and soft. You can also use your tools to kind of blend the clay together where the 2 balls meet and just kind of smooth everything out. Once you get all the balls of clay onto the wire, you're going to want to take your fingers and you're going to push all the balls together and try and make sure they're as close together as possible, so that way when they bake they kind of meld together into one solid piece. And like I said, these would probably work really cool for like a fairy type creature, a fairy dragon, or even if you're going to do more of a humanoid creature, you could give horns to them like this to create more of a softer, more dreamlike look. You can also do the same effect on a different type of wire frame, so you could kind of bend it into more of a curve. You just need to be careful when you're putting the balls of clay on the wire, that when you're pushing them on, that you don't misshape them. Okay, so for the third pair of horns, these are a little bit more detailed. I'm basically trying to make a layered look. So I'm trying to make a pair of horns that look like a bunch of horns pushed together. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out kind of like how we did with the very first pair of horns and take balls of clay and make them into cones. The only thing is you're going to make a bunch of these cones, and you're also going to be making them a lot smaller. So after you have all your cones rolled out, you're going to take the first 2 pairs of cones and you're going to push one on each end of the wire. That's going to start the very top of the horn. And then after that, what you're going to do is you're going to take another 2 pair of cones and you're going to push them onto the horns. Basically, you're trying to make a mirrored image, so that's why I'm doing this at the same time. And then you're just going to keep going down the wire, making sure to kind of go all the way around the wire to create a nice layering effect. After you get everything laid out, you can use your tools to kind of blend everything together and straighten them up, maybe sharpen it a bit more. Honestly, you can even decorate these a bit more by getting some decorative beads and pushing them in between the different cracks of the horns, or you can even add some crystals to the mix and use those as you're layering the different cones to make the horns. So for the fourth pair of horns, I'm going to call these my Maleficent horns because they're kind of in the same style. They're a little bit different though. So again, we're going to kind of do the same thing as the first pair of horns. You're going to take a ball of clay and you're going to make a cone shape and then put it onto the wire. And then we're also going to be blending this down the wire as well, like we did with the first one. Now once we like the shape of this, what we're going to do is we're going to actually push this onto the countertop and take 2 fingers and push along the side, because my idea is to create more of a triangle shape. And then what I'm going to do to add some texture to this is I'm going to take one of my sharp tools and I'm going to make lines going all the way up the horn. I'm going to do this on all 3 sides. And then once I have all the lines on the horns, I'm going to do another step similar to the very first horns, and I'm going to pinch the very bottom of the horn and I'm going to twist. But I am not going to twist as much as I did before. I'm just going to kind of go around maybe once or twice. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other horn, but I'm going to be going the opposite direction. And now you can kind of see why I called them my Maleficent horns. You could also use these for maybe a goat horn, or if you want to make a ram horn, all you have to do is make the wire frame where it's kind of curved, and then do the same thing just on a curved wire. It might be a little bit difficult to make the triangle effect, so you might have to use maybe 3 fingers instead of a counter in 2. Now for the 5th and final pair of horns, basically again you're going to do the same thing from the very first and a couple other horns. You're going to take balls of clay, roll them out into cones, and put them onto the wire. Now I'm not going to be blending the clay down the wire as much as the other horns, mainly because I want these to be a bit shorter. Now what I'm doing with this pair of horns is I'm trying to make it look kind of layered, but not like the previous kind. More of like it's made of segments or something. So basically I'm taking one of my rounded tools and I'm going to be pushing it into the clay around the base. I'm going to go all the way around in a line. You don't have to keep it even or anything because I want to make it look kind of rough and jagged. And then you're going to do the same thing just a little further up the horn and do that again and again until you get to the very top. Now this technique works a lot better with larger horns because you can add a lot more detail to it and everything and have a lot more control, but I'm trying to make all the horns the same size so it's just a little bit easier to show you guys. Okay guys, and that's how I made 5 different types of horns for my art dolls. I made 5 different dragons using these horns, and I'm going to have them in my Etsy shop, so if anyone's interested in buying them, go ahead and check the links down below for that. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If so, leave me a like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!